Hi, and welcome once again to What's the Damage, companion show to the incredibly well-known and popular Real Play D&D show, Roll for Damage. Can you believe summer's almost over? Slipping away. Oh well. So our heroes, the Shields of Twilight, managed to piss someone off last week because they woke up in what was essentially a gas chamber. But they didn't let that stop them because they very quickly escaped this death trap using the knowledge of the ancients. They discovered that they had been taken to a factory complex of some kind in Riverrun, but were not able to find out more as they were quickly captured by guards and just as quickly bailed out by Lex and Kate. So that all wrapped itself up very neatly. Shaken but not stirred, the party retired to the Scarlet Estate to plot their next move. Then they descended into the sewers, gross, along with Lex, where they had a bad kind of roady time, but did emerge victorious eventually, despite Campion dying for a minute there. But we'll have a chance to talk about all of that in just a few minutes. As always, stick around at the stream for links, charities, resources, cool stuff. I'm your host, Truth Venson, and this is What's the Damage? Welcome back. We've got two great guests today. We've got Caleel, who plays Baltime, and we've got Tick, who plays Sinric. Thank you guys for joining us. So, you guys got kidnapped and then had a little fun adventure in the sewers. What's the damage?
I don't know,
I demand a
fun.
redo.
I don't know if fun is the apt word to describe in the
Oh,
sewers,
silly,
but
silly chill. Didn't smell at all.
There
yeah.
was no white vans. There was no promises of candy. This kidnapping
Yeah.
was a sham.
Oh, right. I really should have given you candy. Awesome. So we'll talk about all the cool and weird things happening that happened last episode in a bit. But I did want to touch on a few things from like the previous two-ish episodes, just because. So something I'm curious about, Sinric is a little bit familiar with this country, and not necessarily in a good way, as we found out when everyone uh, turned up unexpectedly in that tower. So considering what a hostile reception he got when he revealed his name upon entering the city, like what's the history there with Sinric's family in this country?
Well, it wouldn't be like a history per se specifically, but the
Hmm.
fact that they're enemies. I mean,
That's
that's the
a
best way to put
history,
it.
surely.
I mean, it's not like I knew this person physically. It's not like
Hmm.
they knew who I was physically, but I mean, you know enough of like houses and families as far as like city structures to essentially know who your enemies are, and
Hmm.
yeah, unfortunately, those two nations are not on happy terms. It's they don't go out and get popcorn and watch movies together. So
Which
Yeah,
is sad. Really shame. You really
yeah,
you
should.
know we could change the
It's
face of warfare.
yeah. Diplomacy would be so much easier if we all just got popcorn and watched movies.
it's sort of like Romeo and Juliet, where like you don't really know the family, just like the family, you know the family name, but not necessarily know like, oh, that's the daughter of this family. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, your name? Oh, okay, so you must be like linked to that sort of thing. Got it.
And
Yeah.
yep, and it was one of those in my head. The rationalization there was, okay, well, yeah, if I get caught here, it's going to be really bad because they're probably not going to be involved in like the day-to-day politics of the city. So let me just say I have no affiliation to them. You know who I am. I'm not lying. If I was a spy, would I really be that stupid as to straight up tell you? Oh, look who I'm traveling with. Maybe I should have hid that.
Yeah.
It do be like that.
But yeah, it was something that I felt I just had to disclose considering where we are and for the risk of preventing further hardship for the group down the road in the event that something like that happened to get out. At least, that's a situation that's now out in the open. It's not like it's a surprise.
Right. So a little trouble now to avoid trouble later, essentially.
That was the intention. Cross my fingers. Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah. So was Simric like at all concerned, like entering Riverrun, considering that he knew that he would probably not get a warm reception if people found out who he was?
I mean, no warmer reception than Dash or, Cage Sparrow as far as that goes. I was just trying to physically stay out of a cell with Oriana at that point. So yeah, that was my whole intention.
Well, you managed it, so I guess it worked.
For now. We still got locked up at some point.
Yeah, there's still plenty of time to end up in a cell, don't worry.
So I mean, yeah, like I said, I wasn't looking to, roll out the red carpet or anything, but at the same token, I wasn't looking to increase hostilities between two nations just because I happened to be in a city.
Got you. So what is it like for your two characters and like specifically to be embroiled in like this weird political mishmash with all these different layers, which heavily involves someone you've been friends with for quite a few months now?
For both of them, it's just like let's get through this and not he doesn't care, like he understands like the point of this essentially, or not the point of it, but like the results of this will be that whatever we do, we will be making an enemy of someone. Let's just get through this and be like whoever we become friends with, be fine with that. Don't really care about what we're gonna make enemies regardless. So pick the enemy you want to have your enemy and be fine with the results and consequences that come with that. He kind of doesn't really care about the whole processes. He's just like, let's get through this unabashed and is in the place that we're the most comfortable with. If we're comfortable with Cade, let's make sure whatever task that Cade wants us, even if Cade is lying to us, even if Cade is not telling us the whole truth, which I mean, Baltimore believe he seems like an honorable man so far, everything he's seen in his actions. So he's like, if Cade is the one we want to be allied with, let's complete his task because we want to be in more relationship with him than anyone else. So even if he's lying to us, even if he's deceiving us, what he wants is ultimately what he wants. So if we can help assist him in what he wants, that makes us seem more competent and credible for him, and maybe can make a building relationship with that. If we want to do with someone else, let's try to get what they want and help them figure out what they want. And Baltimore understands no one here is necessarily innocent or guilty per se. Everyone has a foot or a piece of like a finger in the pie, so to speak. Figure out which one you want to be in bed with and then sort of lie with it.
That's very interesting and very pragmatic. So Beltane's almost like aggressively neutral in all these power struggles. He's just like, let's find some allies and not die.
Right.
I mean, that makes sense. That's how you survive. It's I can't say it's not too far off as far as how I'm approaching or handling or digesting the situation, however you want to call it. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like to navigate the politics of an issue. I have in my head that sometimes it's you have to lose like the small game in order to win the larger game. Because I mean, we're not playing a game necessarily of finding out who's controlling this group.
Right.
We might be playing a game that we're not looking at as far as choosing sides or determining the fate of something much, much larger that goes on behind the scenes that we don't even get to see or be a part of. So it's one of those where, similar to kind of like what Beltane said, it's you have to take, make your pick and hope that it was the right one at the end of the day.
So both your characters are kind of okay with being pawns in a larger political game.
I have no choice right now in this city. So
True
I'm
enough.
just going along for the ride.
100% Baltine's fine being a pawn.
Sometimes that's chill. I don't need to know what we're doing. Just point me in a direction. I'll do it.
Yep.
But I mean, even as a soldier, you yourself are kind of a pawn as a soldier. So I mean, you're the one that gets sent out to do the fighting. So it's not anything that's new. I mean, I'm not used to the whole political side of things. I'm used to there's a problem being pointed at it, go hit it.
Right.
Yeah, Cynric would have usually seen the political aspect, which tends to stay home, whereas the soldiers go to the battlefield.
So it's not anything that, like I said, probably wouldn't escape what I know or what I've experienced, but it's just, right now I believe the lesser of two evils is Cade, but I still believe that, stand by my rationale that maybe we shouldn't talk to any of them individually as per negotiating a contract.
Pragmatic. And it's interesting seeing this perspective from your two characters, especially since Oriana especially is very emotionally invested in all these twisty turny political things, because it's her life as well, and these are people she knows personally, or at least a few of them are. Yeah, interesting. Cool beans. So you guys were captured by somebody and woke up in a smokestack, then received absolutely murder, a time challenge. Talk to me about the gas chamber.
I just think it's just spot on that Baltine's first initial reaction was like, all right, I got out of these things. Let me go mess with this valve thing. I need to figure out this thing to save everybody. It's good. Instead of like his first instinct should have been probably like, I'm out of here. Let me untie Perry, Oriana, and everybody.
I mean, his approach absolutely worked.
I just turn him off.
I mean, it would have been greater if you, just so much better if you got the first one right.
Yeah.
Just by pure accident.
It would have been great.
Yeah. I think that's just responding of his mindset of like, it's almost nice in a way because he just immediately thought his friends could get out by themselves. They didn't necessarily need him. And I mean, they did ultimately, but he was like, let me stop this thing that's like, let me help in a better way to like stop this thing from killing us in immediate action. Because he didn't know if like Orion, might have his greatest constitution as, Cynric or me or, whatsoever, So I was like, oh, let me try to turn this thing off before. Like he's he's like, let's do this. Like he's like the jump on the grenade guy.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I like the fact that it was timed because it forced us into making decisions as opposed to talking about puzzles, as that's kind of been something that we've been guilty of, where we would take, physically an hour, 2 hours to solve a puzzle because we're talking about it and can't decide push the left button or the right button.
Yeah, and you did. I think you solved it in like 6 minutes.
Yeah, I hope that acts as a confidence booster to all of us to realize that, hey, you know what? Maybe we should trust what we're thinking and go with it.
Yeah. Just follow those instincts and twiddle some levers, see what happens. It'll probably work out. So you all discussed this in character a little bit, but who do you think kidnapped you?
I mean, I think we kind of know it's a strangled vine, but we don't know like who it was necessarily. I'm pretty sure we're pretty positive it was a strangled vine, that the organization that kidnapped us.
I'm still leaning more towards it's the cult and not necessarily the vine. I'm thinking it might be some rogue members of the Vine, but not the Vine as a whole.
I think I don't think the cult knows anything about us, honestly. We've not intercepted them. We've kind of always been like a step behind them. I feel like the cult,
And
unless they've
now
like
we're
guiding information now of us, but I don't think they know anything about us necessarily.
and now we're right on their heels as far as
Yeah,
being in the same city as they are. So I mean, yeah, I think they're using rogue members of the Vine to their own, their
that's
own end.
possible. Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't think it's the organization as a whole, but definitely involved.
Mhm. Yeah. One thing I was wondering, or one thing that I was thinking re this was that during you guys kind of described like the strangled vine, or somebody described it as kind of like the CIA. And I don't know, the factory did not seem like a black site. So I think that makes me think that Cynric might be right, that it's cult members rather than the official strangled vine. But that's just me speculating.
Yeah, to me that just makes more sense that it's not the whole organization corrupt, but maybe like, a member at the top and like the
Hmm.
people under them. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm basing it on. It's kind of weird to have an entire agency that is out for this whole purpose unless that entire agency is under someone that's corrupt,
Well,
which
that
is a
could be.
possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
100%.
to me, it just seems strange that if if this was the or if this was anyone else besides String Vine,
Mhm.
if they had a problem with us, why not just kill us once they got to the factory? You know what I mean? They kind of made like a whole like pomp and circumstance about it. You know what I mean? So like sort of to like back make us back off. Like we can do this to you whenever we want to, type of thing. Like we have influence. We could basically drug you while you're in public and sort of like do this whole like song and dance of like back off or we will commit next time sort of deal. And
Mhm.
that just kind of rings to like a warning of like we don't have to do this, but we can if we want to, type thing. And I don't necessarily know if a cult of like the undead would like necessarily have that sort of maneuverment about them.
So you think
Well,
the cult would just like slit your throats while you're
Yeah,
unconscious?
yeah,
and see
Interesting.
that's where I say they would, use rogue members of the Vine, because those rogue members would still be represented by that organization. They would still have access to that, but it wouldn't be the Vine as a whole that's making that call. The cult basically saying, "Hey, this is a warning. Get out of town. We don't want to invest the resources to deal with you, but we will if we have to." If
Interesting.
oh,
Oh,
gone.
no, go ahead.
I was going to say if that's indeed what it is.
Got you. What do you think about the theory that was floated that that might have been a test of some kind?
I like it.
I don't think it's a test. I think warning is more of a better. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
more of a warning than a test. I don't like. Sure, maybe it could have been a test. But then that comes into question for who and for what. You know what I mean? Um, I think it was more of a warning of stay out of our pie
Mhm.
and be the good little boys and girls and just walk around and do your little hero
Angela,
stuff. Yeah,
do your little hero stuff, but not near us.
right.
Yeah, I think that's realistically the logical
Mhm.
choice. I like the theory that it was a test as far as like Oriana and who she's after,
Mhm.
because it just is a fun story to tell at that point. But yeah, I agree. Logically, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for it to be a test.
Yeah. And I tend to think that the reason it was a puzzle was because it's D&D. Just meta. It has to be. But like, what about because there was that theory float that it was a test. Do you think that Oriana's like old mentor is involved heavily in all of this or at
No,
all?
I
I
No?
don't
don't
even
think at
think he's
all. No.
anywhere near the city. I think
Mm.
he's long gone. I
If
just
anything, if anything, maybe he's involved with the cult, so he's like adjacently involved, maybe.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think so. I don't think he's involved in any of this necessarily. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
based on what was described, he seems to be the kind of person that is contracted to the highest bidder.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that once he bounced,
He bounced.
went to somewhere that necessarily the laws of that nation can't reach, or might not necessarily be on friendly terms with, and sold some stuff. So I'm thinking he's probably either back in like Dash or Sunshield at this point.
Someplace that won't extradite. That makes sense.
Some profiteering going on there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So after you guys escaped that death trap, whatever it was, and whatever the meaning of it was, you snuck around the factory a little bit, but ended up getting caught before you could really find any clues. I was really surprised that Baltaim did not take the opportunity to smash through that window in the office. This seems like something that would appeal to him.
He saw through the window and saw there was nothing in there of importance, so he kind of figured if Orion just made a loud ass sound, if we do get caught, I don't want to look like we're breaking in. They can't. So if there's no broken window or there's no like stuff on us, they can't say we have evidence you were stealing. There was like, why were you in the factory? Like we broke in maybe, but then the question comes, how did you break into the factory without breaking the front lock, but not the second lock? So now there's more questionable, like reasonable doubt, like maybe they were trapped in there. But like why? Like the question still asks, like, why did you leave the front door? Sure, but it's like, how did you get in the front door without unlocking it, but you had to unlock this factory door? So it's less of a suspicious thing on us. That's like, we didn't break anything, we didn't steal anything. We could more easily pass off that we were confused. We just woke up unconscious and we were in this factory. We're trying to look for our stuff. Make that more believable. I considered the unopened one, but I had like looked into the one that was open and saw nothing was in there. So I was like, there's probably nothing in any of these offices. So he kind of didn't do it, and kind of everything else kind of happened before he could like make that decision. But he kind of was like, there's a low chance that something's going to be in any of these offices.
Yeah, I suppose paper products, or maybe the name of the company.
Yeah.
Or
Baltim's not interested in pins.
He's like, I don't care where we are. Did you ever find out like who owns that factory?
I don't think we did.
Oh.
It's like a steel mill or something like that.
Yeah, that's about all we know.
Yeah, I suppose it's something you can worry about later. And it kind of ended up not mattering anyway, because Lex swooped in to get you guys out of trouble. Cool beans. So Sindrick seemed very sure that someone was planning to level the whole city. Why did he think that was the plan specifically?
Well, I mean, as far as an act of war, it's like what better way to rally your troops than to make it look as if your enemy attacked you.
So he thinks it's an inside job that they want to.
I mean, that just seems reasonable that someone would pay to have a travesty struck upon them and blame it on the enemy.
Go ahead. Go
sorry. Sorry.
Left, right.
One of you
exactly.
Go.
Yeah, it's one of those where like it just makes sense to. You're stuck in this war of attrition where neither of you are gaining the upper hand. What better way to motivate and rally, to kind of bolster those numbers and bolster your forces, and to give yourself that kind of moral higher ground than if your enemy destroyed your shining beacon of glory.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with Cedric, by the way. Baltimore agrees with Cedric that is the long game. I don't agree that. I think the only thing that is like pausing me is like a trail doesn't really need a reason or any like bolstering to like keep going to war. They're like, that's their whole like mindset of like, we make they have like their Dr. Doom mindset. The world would be better if we were in charge and could help navigate the chaos of the world by adding what we know and like helping involve our culture and involving other cultures in ours and like making the world unified. So they're kind of their like war plans are like already, they're all at war with everyone. So they don't really need to like go to war, like kind of keep like, yeah, let's keep going to war, and they also don't need like a common enemy because everyone is basically their enemy. Uh, I think that is the long goal, is to like just to raise the city. I think it's more for more numbers for the Undying Cult, though.
And I mean that does make 100% sense. I mean the way I'm seeing it, based on what I have seen and heard in game, is they're not doing like, it's not like they're making huge advancements
No,
and
yeah,
huge
they're not making
strides
huge
on
strides.
any of their fronts. And the one person they are focusing on attacking is simply because that's an attack of opportunity. That's a target of opportunity for them. But on
Yeah,
the other fronts, they either can't afford to make
right.
the footing, or they're
Mhm.
literally holding at a standstill. So I mean, if they present themselves to as the victim, they increase morale for their own troops to push for more effort, and they could even attract allies to their cause against some of their bigger targets, that are necessarily more neutral to their stance. Because we do know of, I believe, 2 places right now that are neutral to their stances, and they don't want to be involved.
Interesting theory. It's all very geopolitical. So
But
how? Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, the undead thing is way more scary, and probably what's gonna
Mhm.
happen though.
Yeah, yeah. I was about to say, like, how does all this tie into the exploding corpses, which were being delivered to River Ren?
Yeah,
But were they
Baltium's kind
corpses?
of, yeah. Well, they're not corpses yet. They're just
Soon
bodies
to
right now.
be, soon to
Yeah.
be.
Baltium's kind of another reason why Baltium's like, guys, there's why are we trying to figure out what's like
Uh-huh.
the right thing, or like the moral code of it? Like this place is kind of moralist. Like there are morals, and like, sure, like from good and bad, but like
Mhm.
even like the trillion like nature of like, let's be unified by causing wars, kind of like a moral like gray ground already to start with at a base. Like
I think it's bad.
yeah. So it's like the idea of like, let's be one unified country, that's like
Mhm.
sure, but that's also kind of like that like nationalism like sort of thing, and so it's like kind of like it gets weird at that point. So it's like, why are we trying to figure out what's best for a trail? Because the trail is not even like that great of a place, to be honest.
Mhm.
That's like, and all the countries have their problems. Like Sunshield, they hunt like mages for no real reason. Like I understand their understanding of like magic is chaos. Let's try
I
to
mean,
order like make order of that. But that's still also kind of like, that's kind of a bad thing too. But it's like, why
Mhm.
are we trying to do what's best for this one country? Like let's just try to figure out what's best for us,
Mhm.
and then solve the thing that's like best for the world. Because undying army
Sounds
placed in
bad.
hands, and
yeah.
yeah, Vecna seems bad.
And see,
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you 100%. Where I do disagree with you is, I think siding with Cade might be the best overall circumstance for us going forward in the future, as
Yeah,
far as his vision of unity. While it might not be a good thing, if we need a lot of numbers really fast to say fight an undead army, well, if we have someone who believes in unity,
yeah,
then maybe there's a way to rally that to our side.
yeah.
But at the same time, if a Trill is picking so many fights with other countries, will people rally to their banner? Because you need more than one army, probably.
I think
Well,
I
that's true.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think there are certain things like independent states come to mind. Like if there's like aliens attacking, or like there's something disturbing causing disturbance on your world, it kind of trumps any like geopolitical games you kind of have at that point.
Well,
It
it
should.
didn't.
It should.
In,
But
in the fantasy world, it does.
right. It
I
should normally. But
I have a hard time believing somewhere like Sunshield would come out of their hole to help with something like that,
Mhm.
considering the forces at play that would be causing that. I'm pretty sure that would just cause them to hunker down and turtle up based on where they're at. Whereas someone like Cade would have more gumption to take on something like that head on and lead a charge against it. And that's kind
Mhm.
of where I'm putting my eggs. so to speak.
Interesting. So you're lining up allies for the future.
Potentially, because I mean,
Potentially.
yeah, what is it? The Lord of Darkness. He's not alone. He's not by
Yeah.
himself. I mean, he's bound to have friends. He's bound to have subordinates, and there's going to be more than 6 of them.
Little darkness buddies. It's a
So,
little dark day.
you know, I mean,
Um,
if it comes worse to worse, I mean, us 6 against, the darkness,
mhm.
or an entire army and us 6 against the darkness. Every little bit helps.
Yeah. You guys are the main characters, though you will need allies probably for the final battle. Okay, so before we move on, you guys had a kind of rough encounter in the sewers. I think just about everyone went down at least once, breathed some sewer water. Campion died for a little bit. So tell me about this combat.
Oh God.
It was rough.
I mean, it wasn't as bad as it was. What made it really rough is that, there was a failed stealth check.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't even failed. It was just that it was awkward positioning.
Yeah, I mean, we got seen. I think it would have been a little bit better had we, instead of stayed as a group, just let 1 or 2 people go on ahead to scout the area out, and maybe picked battles on a smaller scale, as opposed to everyone just staying as, a clumped up group in line of sight.
Yeah, it was hard, especially because we're a party of low perception. Low perception and also low stealth. So like stealth missions are really bad for us.
Speak for yourself on stealth.
Well, I'm saying like as a whole, like Perry is good at perception and like Sinrig is good at stealth. Like we have like 2 people that can do like half of each thing. So it's like we're kind of like if we get a jump on someone, it's good because then we can sort of like see everything going on and we can hit hard. But if we get ambushed, it's just sort of like, where are we getting hit from? Oh, Campion's dead.
God.
I'm in the water. Oh God, what's going on? It's like it is kind of a chaos, and it's like more scrambling of like who can get up who, how do we hit back in a way that works? Because like especially for rogues, because rogues are so good at skirmish attacks, you just hit, hide, and then run and hit
all
again.
that sneak attack you guys were getting hit with.
Now,
Sneak attack.
I will say, from a tactical point of view, everyone just kind of like clumped up in that main hallway. And I mean, you all like painted targets saying, hit me, when we had, a couple hallways there that we could have branched down and actually, potentially had better cover. So, I mean, maybe that's the takeaway, is better using our surroundings and not being able to be as picked off, so to speak.
The only problem I would say with that is that we didn't have like the ability to wasn't able to showcase, like we're kind of, other than Cinerank, we're kind of like low mobility too. Like we're kind of like in a narrow hallway to start off anyway. We're kind of like just sitting fish in the barrel anyway. So like getting out 30 feet was kind of like barely getting to that second hallway even then. So it was kind of hard because we can't really maneuver that fast to like get to spread out as quickly as we want to, because we're all kind of like normal to average speed besides like Cineric.
Well, I mean, the only reason I got as far as I did was because I dashed that turn.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's one of those where sometimes being in a different position is better than attacking, holding an attack. Not to critique anything, because I'm not trying to do that.
That's true.
At least that's not my intention. But yeah, it was a difficult encounter, and we handled it as best we could. But there's room for us to grow based on that encounter alone. So I mean, yeah, that was kind of my point there.
I'll need some monks or something.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun.
Oh, Rip Dobby.
I mean, I still feel a little bit jaded. I got my kill stolen.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to kill someone so badly in that fight. I want to do something cool, but yeah, it's all right.
But I mean, it was one of those, I was kind of hoping the guy would try to run away from me and hide, because that would at least push him further back into the hallway. And that's a form of control in itself as well. If they can be pushed back and positioned,
Mhm.
you can control that as well on the battlefield as to where they're going, where they're going to come from. So that's something to consider as well. And I made the mistake of running where I did, and then when I saw what was there, it was like, ah, crap, I shouldn't have gone here.
Oh no.
Too late now.
Oh,
But
y'all
that
made.
it wasn't a bad play because I
Mhm.
painted a target on myself instead of you guys. And I mean, quite frankly, I can take more hits than you guys.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a bad play overall. Me going down is, better than say like Oriana or Perry or Quinn.
Yours go down.
Most of whom did go down, yeah.
Yeah.
But you all made it out in the end, so it's fine.
Yeah.
I think this talk of battlefield strategy is actually a good segue into our topic for today, which is math and improv. So we're talking about today the most basic tenets of D&D, which the fundamental principles upon which everything else lays, which is math and improv. Specifically, we're talking more about taking like a more mechanical approach to D&D versus a more role play approach. So first off, do you two consider yourselves a more mechanics based player or a more role play based player?
It has to depend on the circumstance, in all honesty.
Mm.
I realize it's a vague as hell answer, but I mean, it's one of those where if you look at, say, like an assassination mission, and you have a rogue that tries to assassinate someone in your group, and even using us for example, we're level 9, I have 101 health. It's pretty hard for even an assassin rogue to do 202 damage in one hit to
Yeah.
physically kill me outright.
That's pretty hard.
Whereas in reality, if I'm sleeping and have my throat slit, I'm probably gonna die.
Yeah.
So I think it has to depend on the circumstance. And granted, that's a bit of extreme example, but
Mhm.
it has to depend on that circumstance. And even players have to kind of have that trust in their DM to propel that narrative forward. Whereas say like, oh, there was an assassination. Okay, but how much damage did that rogue have to do to outright kill someone? That just doesn't make
A lot. They
sense.
did a
Yeah.
lot.
So
Don't
it's
worry
one of
about it.
those, exactly. It's just one of those weird kind of dynamics where it's like in combat, maybe we focus on damage and number,
Mhm.
but when we're role playing story, maybe we tuck away that bit of information to its happy little corner and roll with it for the sake of the story.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna give the other cop-out answer. I think I'm more technical, mechanical, but I use my like mechanical knowledge to like judge what I do in like improvising and role playing wise.
Mhm.
In a sense of like I might know that like Sim said, I might know that like realistically I have like a whatever in strength or whatever and blah blah blah. So I'm like, oh, I have a crazy idea, and I relatively like as small team I've like I'm usually the ones like, guys, I have a crazy idea, hear me out, listen to me here. And but I usually I'm like, I think to myself before I do, I'm like, will this mechanically work? And if not, is it like in a gray area where like if I argue it well enough, or if like I give it well enough like reasoning for it, will like the DM like, that's cool, let's try it, let's see, let me see you roll to see if it can work, and then like that's all you really need, the chance. So I think I use my technical skills of D&D and like mechanics knowledge to like judge and influence what I do improvising wise.
Yeah, I kind of also have a sort of cop-out answer to my own question. Generally, I think of myself as a pretty role play based character just because I like acting, and like being weird, pretending to be like a weird witch or something. But I noticed that as I got like more familiar with the system, as I've been playing D&D for more and more years, I get more interested in making mechanically complex characters because that becomes fun once you really understand the rules of the game. And you can be like, oh, here I can line all these things up in a combat. It's really satisfying to have like 6 things you can do in one round of combat. You're just like, this is amazing. delicious. Ugh.
You mean like creating the assassin Gloomstalker rogue that can do like
Yeah.
2,000 damage in one hit
Yeah.
if they're not
It's
seen?
like it's really satisfying. It's like I don't want to be a power gamer, but the rush, God. Lordy. So like in that vein, do you guys enjoy the mechanics of D&D?
I enjoy the possibilities of creating something powerful. Absolutely. I think a
Mhm.
lot of people that do game, whether it be tabletop or video game, enjoy that feeling of playing a character that's super powerful and is capable of having those moments that, like, well, I guess that badass moment where, they're the one, on the battlefield, they're the one that's, front and center and the spotlight's on them. So yeah, I would definitely say I enjoy that capability and be able to do that. But sometimes that's not the only thing to work towards when playing a game, because that's one moment. What about the other 99% of moments where it's not going to be that way?
Yeah, I think we're all human. We all like to see how much numbers we can pump out. Like that's just like the most satisfying thing. You're like, number. Like tell me my number that I just hit.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, honestly. But and I think that probably is like became like as like surely became like my favorite like just character theory, crafting theory, like making like if I put this class in this class, this kind of weird thing that doesn't normally work, like rogue cleric doesn't really work, but like if I do grave cleric and I get like vulnerability, I can like sneak attack and double vulnerability, like double it, and like it's just crazy numbers. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. I like that. So like that, but then like Cedric said, or like Tick said, that's just combat really. So it's like it's cool that your grave cleric rogue can do like 300 damage if you like use all your things, but then it's like, well, what if you need to talk to this person? What do you do then? It's like, oh, well, can I kill him? It's like, well, yeah, sure, but like you didn't really accomplish what you're doing, so it's like you kind of like have to like round yourself out and like sort of like take that mindset of like sure the numbers are good and like you always like and it does suck obviously to just like not be able to do good in anything at all or not be able to be viable in combat at all, honestly, but like you have to like sort of kind of like hold yourself back sometimes, or at least for me when like making a character, because I don't want to like inadvertently min-max in general either. So it's like just kind of hold yourself back and like maybe like for most people I'll usually take something I might take something that's not less optimal for like having a warlock blade black pack, but like it's just more fun like to like just do like spider climb. It's probably wasn't the best thing for me to pick at whatever level I was at. It was like,
but it's really fun.
Walk on walls. Yeah. You might need me to walk on a wall and like climb up something. So I'm like, no one else can do it. I might as well take it. It's kind of fun. Yeah. I mean, so it's kind of like those things like you kind of pick and choose. Like this is not like mechanically good or like not great, like but it's like fun and like or it fits the theme of my character. So I'm like, I'm gonna take it.
Yeah. I mean, so I guess it's safe to say by that assumption that, if you do want to like say min-max and power game a character, it might be better off to do that for say like a one shot.
Yeah, one shot. Yeah.
But anything that you plan on having like an RP element for, maybe that min-maxing should be kind of like put on the back burner as far as like a character that you enjoy playing. I guess something to consider, along with those numbers and everything, would be how characters progress as well, because I mean every character is on a curve of power as far as what they get when they get it and how useful they are within certain brackets of play. So I mean that's also something to consider as well. If you're running a campaign of say like level 1 to level 5, and after level 5 that's it, your campaign's over, you might consider maybe playing a moon druid, because at those early levels, they're ridiculously OP and you don't have to invest much, because, I mean, you turn into a brown bear and you're literally better than anything the game could throw at you, save, a juvenile dragon.
Pro tip. Be a
druid.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm just using that as an example because it's one of the easiest ones, but yeah, as far as understanding what you want to play and match that to the duration of the game that you want to play as well. Because I mean, it's one of those where like even in this game, I've as far as damage output at level 5, it's ice spike at damage at level 5, and then I get a little bit more damage at level 9, and then that's it. Whereas like people get access to higher and higher spells in our group, and by level 15, level 16, they're probably going to be doing a lot more damage than I could in a round, regardless of circumstance. So it's just a matter of understanding that growth and where your character is going to fit that you're creating on that growth chart.
Yeah, and some classes, as you said, like peak a little bit earlier. Some it's a slow burn, like Wizards, the classic slow burn. Like you start absolutely piddly, you turn into a god.
You're like, mage armor, protect me, please.
and then by the time you're level, or like going back to the Moon Druids, where their curve is literally like this until they get to level 20. So I mean, it all depends on like what you want to do and where the story's taking you. Or if it's in a one shot, just do whatever you want to.
Fun,
one shots where you can do whatever weird shit you want.
Exactly.
Lovely. So I've heard it said that D&D is putting kind of an increasing emphasis on role play versus mechanics in like each new edition. Do you think that's true? Were older editions more mechanically based?
That's hard to say.
Stricter towards numbers. I mean,
they
had more like defined stricter rules. So I guess I mean, by that definition, sorry.
Had to think about it for a sec.
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna just count, contrarian point. I'm gonna say no because it's weird because 5e has a lot of things that they do where they put mechanics into like niche things for some reason. Like it's kind of like they kind of wash it in between. Like they'll have mechanics that your class or character, your subclass can do that are like not mechanically, like don't really have like real mechanics, like they'll have something like fun to it or like just be kind of like for role playing purposes. Where older editions is kind of like your numbers and your like what this thing does to this rule sort of like has like a set thing. And so it's kind of hard to judge 5e because there's also like the more better your numbers are, the better your things do. So it's like it's sort of a weird place. I would say, I don't know. There's like a structured layer order for mechanics in like older editions, but like 5e has just like weirdly like maneuvered like role playing elements of like things into mechanics. So like there's like usually some rule, like if you're like, oh, what something to this, there's usually some rule or like some like DM discretion. So it's like kind of open to interpretation in 5e. So it's kind of weird.
I mean, speaking of 5e, it's in this place where I don't want to say it's weird, like like you were saying, but they either describe something in absolute certainty, so that there's no question about it when it comes to a mechanical ability, or when it comes to like say a class feature or something of that nature, they'll describe it in a vague way to deliberately give you freedom of interpretation when it comes to that particular ability. And then sometimes they might make like an errata to change that or to reclassify that if it's having like different purposes for what was intended and is breaking game. But yeah, for the most part, 5e really wants you to have the creativity of just like doing as much as what your imagination can without like deliberately breaking the game. So I mean, 5e is definitely more friendly for role playing at that point because it's just built into the rules.
Interesting.
Or I should say not built into the rules deliberately.
It's built in by not being built in.
Yeah, the rules are more flexy perhaps than older editions.
Unless it's something that like physically needs a rule, in which case literally it's written out in the book where it's like this is how it's intended to work.
Now I want to agree with Tick. I don't know. I don't even know what I said earlier.
He's talked you around.
I don't know what I said earlier anymore. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I agree and I don't agree.
Yeah,
tomorrow I'll
2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
See, I think it's just a natural evolution of the game, whereas when it was created, it was something that was a little bit more strict to the rules, and it just kind of evolved and got, I don't want to say better, but changed over time, tried new things, and here we are in 2021 with the current iteration of what we have, and I think it's better than what we started. Does it have room for improvement? Sure, what doesn't?
That's why we keep getting new editions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've talked about before about how like older editions would just be like pure dungeon crawl, like the classic game where you'd have like a wad of characters because you go through like five in a game. So I kind of want to talk about like those sort of like old-fashioned dungeon crawl campaigns or even just dungeon crawl games because those are almost pure mechanics. It's all puzzles and combat. Have you ever done one of those and enjoyed it? Like, is that the kind of thing that you enjoy doing sometimes, or do you prefer the more like storytelling, like more role play focused type of games like Serenity Runs?
It can be fun if it's done in like the right environment. I mean, if you have 3 hours to kill and you're doing a dungeon crawl and that's it, it has the potential to be fun if you have the players that are working together and just having a blast with it. Because I mean, that way you're not getting like too attached to a character, and when they inevitably die to a bad roll, it's not a situation of oh no, oh no, oh no, I'm heartbroken. It's oh crap, that was funny. I got a bad roll and that rock fell on my head.
Like, oh,
so I mean, yeah. So it has its moments. It has its places.
Yeah, it's sort of what your expectations are because, like, going into like a tomb or some crypt, you're kind of like, oh, I'm expecting this to be mechanical, like traps, things like that. But like, if you're like in like sneaking into a castle, like, why is there a pitfall trap in the castle? Like, wouldn't someone just walk by this today? It's like it's here because like it's gotta be here. I need a pick a trap, and there's only a pick trap. So it's like it's sort of like it
doesn't
kind
make
of like
sense.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's like, oh, it's just there because it has to be there because I can't like let you just walk around the castle and then kill a king without like all that this extra stuff. So
That'd
it's
be
like
hard.
So yeah, it's gotta be hard. So it sounds like it's sort of what your expectations are set on. I think that is a good thing of 5e is just like to let you, because there's so many like different type of things you can sort of like weave into like a dungeon crawl. Like a dungeon crawl doesn't necessarily have to be a tomb or something like that anymore. It could just be like it'd be like raiding a house. Like there might be magical traps. This might be like a wizard. They might have like contingency spells somewhere. Like if you open this door, this happens, or glyphs and stuff like that. So it's like it's a little bit more like a dungeon crawl. It's like dungeon crawl has kind of like reinvented itself as like then like a dungeon crawl, but it's also like not like it's not the same face of like a tomb dungeon type of thing.
Yeah, there's
a series of encounters to test your endurance.
Yeah, it's like the anti-meta dungeon crawl.
So I mean, it's one of those where like I mean, when you go into say a dungeon crawl, I think one of the funner things is if it's like a one shot for a dungeon crawl, you can literally focus on building a character to handle that dungeon crawl. Whereas say like our campaign, if we get ready to go on a dungeon crawl, we literally err on the side of caution and buy all sorts of supplies that we need and literally think about it entirely different because our intention is to survive as opposed to if we're playing a one shot, our intention is to beat the crap out of the dungeon and who cares if we make it out. I mean, ideally it would be great if they make it out, but it's fine. Exactly. If you die and you roll up a new character, that's not the end of the world.
Yeah, you die in the middle, your new character like bursts out of face, like I'm here Jed. Now.
I'm Jed, Fred's brother. I was also
exactly.
Twin brother. There was this really funny idea that I saw somewhere, I think it was on Twitter, where someone was like, if you have a Warforged character and they die, your next character should be a gnome, and it just like bursts out the Warforged chest.
He was piloting him the whole time.
Yeah. Surprise! I'm here now. Unfortunately, my mech suit doesn't work anymore.
That would actually be funny.
That'd be really
dead
funny.
Warforged on the ground. Guys,
guys,
hello. Can you let me out? Help. Oh, wonderful. So I think like we're all sort of balanced, I think. But there are some players who like really, really enjoy mechanics above everything else. And there are some players who like really, really enjoy role play above everything else. Do you think more mechanics interested players and more role play interested players can play at the same table and have fun?
Um, it depends on the DM. If the DM understands that you can't run the campaign fully one way or the other.
Mm.
Depends, and also depends on the player understands that. Just because I like numbers and I like all this, how much damage can I do? The game can't purely be how much damage and how much numbers, how good roll stats can I do. If they understand that there's going to be points where you talk, and you have to like talk to people. There can't just be a fight every session. I mean, there might be a fight every session, but it can't be like this, every combat, we have a combat, we got a combat, we have another combat, it's gonna have to understand that like there's gonna be other things going on, because like otherwise you should be looking, if that's like what you want to play, you should be looking for like a combat game. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you understand that those are the expectations that are gonna be set, that yeah, I'm gonna like, hey, I'm gonna try to do some things for you, but not everything's gonna be for you. It's gonna be some things that you enjoy, and some things you might not enjoy, but be open to them, and you might appreciate it more even though you don't necessarily enjoy it. And the kind of same vice versa. There's not going to be a session. There might be a session where there's all talking and all like role playing, but there might just be a session where because combat runs long, there might be a session where there's just literally all combat, and you kind of have to be okay, understand like, hey, I'm gonna have to understand that there's people in the game that like mechanics, rolling dice, all this stuff, and you can't just like talk to everyone and like drag on the story because you want to talk to everyone. Like talk to the farmer, the farmer's cow, the farmer's dog. Like you can't do all. Yeah, like
Hi, Cal.
Understand that and kind of set your expectations for what the group is going to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was well said. It's one of those where you hit one of the bigger points. Combat takes a really long time to resolve everything, and it's one of those where what I've noticed is a lot of players don't like to preemptively decide what they're going to do. They like to decide when it's their turn. And that leads to combat really taking a long time. So, yeah, it's one of those where you have, for me, combat is fun, but too much combat gets really boring because it's like you make a turn and then you're waiting for 20 minutes to make a turn, and then you wait another 20 minutes. So, I mean, yeah, it's one of those situations where that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, but if that's all your game is, and that's not what your expectation is going into the game, yeah, that's going to be. It's the vice. It's kind of like the same argument when it comes to role play. I mean, if you're making a game where all you want to do is go in and punch stuff and fight stuff and break stuff, and all your group does is role play, it might be.
It can be bored, probably.
Yeah. Whereas you might get some satisfaction out of resolving a combat situation without using combat. I mean, sometimes those are just as equally a fun situation as opposed to bashing someone's head in or throwing a mug at someone and starting a bar fight.
And I will say, because Soren brought up a good point, like a lot of people don't like, and I sometimes like I know I think I don't take too long, but like I usually am thinking of what's going on. But like usually when it comes to my turn, I'm trying to reassess like because something might happen in combat. But if you're not used to that or you're not that skilled at like making decisions on the fly and like readjusting your plans really quickly, playing a class that's sort of really complicated, like a wizard or cleric, stuff like that have like a lot of spells, you kind of have to decide what to do now that every move, every character's turn, the battle reassesses itself. So like playing like a bard or like a fighter, you kind of only have like a few limited options anyway. So you're like, you might have to rethink like, oh, do I attack this person or this person? But like really your ultimate goal is just going to be like attack, 3 to 4 times or whatever, 2 to 4 times, and sort of then movement. So it's like if you understand that you're not really that kind of person that takes a
Mhm.
long time or doesn't really want to do a lot of mechanical stuff, simple classes like fighters or monks or
I always
barbarian
feel
can.
like fighters and monks can get really complicated though.
Well, they can be, but I mean, like there's
depending
like
on their, yeah.
champion fighter, which like you really only just roll 4 attacks and
Classic, yeah.
you crit lower. So it's like you that's really all you need to do, or like regular totem barbarian, you attack things, you take damage. So it's like
Mhm.
you don't really have to think and process a lot. You just like, all right, that's the person close to me, attack, and then you can ease combat faster and then get to more of the thing that you want to do if you want to like role play and stuff like that too.
Cool. So as DMs, do you guys tend to run like more crunchy number games or more story-based games, or do you try to keep a balance of it?
As I get older, story games are more fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I enjoy playing in more role play games. But I think I try to, when I DM, set mechanics, but I don't disallow like things to be overruled by the mechanics. You know what I mean? Like if you have
Huh.
a neat idea, I won't just like, no, the rule book says this. I can't let
Mhm.
you do this. If it makes sense and it's like, oh, I want to try to do this, I will be like, oh, you know what? I didn't think about that. That's an interesting solution that could happen. So yeah, let's see what happens. But I like to just get that base of so everyone that understands can be sure where I'm gonna be at, and so they won't be like, oh, well, why does this spell do this time and not do this other time, sort of thing. So I think I like to lean to the side of what does the mechanics say, but that doesn't mean I won't just hard no anything. You know what I mean? I won't say just no to everything.
Rule of cool, as it
Yeah,
were.
Right.
exactly. I mean, as I was younger, I definitely liked the more kind of like mechanic based thing because
Mhm.
that was that inner rules layer, and I know most of the people here probably guessed that about me at some point. But it's been like tapered down as I got older, and now it's more about like just going with whatever the story direction goes, and sometimes you just have to ignore or rule against a mechanic because it doesn't make any sense in that particular moment. You can always
Yeah.
go back and readjust, to that rule at a later time. But you know what? If it creates a fun story and it's not that, insane or asinine of a thing, let's roll with it. It's fun.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're here to have fun.
Perfect close, because that's our time for tonight. Thank you guys for joining me on this wonderful Tuesday evening. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in once again. Make sure to tune in on Friday for the next exciting episode of Roll for Damage. We've got some things we would love you to check out. On that list of things is our store. We've got mugs, is our Patreon. We've got other cool stuff that you can pay money for, but you have to give some money, otherwise you won't know what that stuff is. Ooh, yeah, we've got a mug right there. Gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. Check out our YouTube. We've got all of our backlog of all the episodes for this show and Roll for Damage on there. Check out our Twitch. We've got some little clippies up there as well as the most recent episodes. Check out our Discord. We post so many memes there and we love to talk to the fans. We need more. We need more. Come talk to us. We're lonely. We're so lonely. Wonderful. Thank you to Sunbird and Lady Meows for doing our title card and our music. They're great. The title card's great. The music's great. We love it. Stick around for links and charities and all the normal stuff. You know the drill by now. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great night. Good night.
And subscribe to our YouTube.
Subscribe to all of our stuff, please.